With Russ Ulbricht being freed of his double life plus 40-year sentence, even the haters are starting to realize that Donald Trump is actually fulfilling his promises made during his campaign. And once you see what else just happened today, you'll have no choice but to cover yourself in baby oil and go absolutely banana mode. So if you understand that this bull market is fundamentally different and we're about to bust higher, stronger and faster than we've potentially ever seen, hit that like and subscribe. Get signed up with Femex or BITUNIX below if you want to buy Bitcoin, altcoins, or trade. And without any further ado, let's absolutely and completely jump into what's going on today. So one of the biggest things I want to start with is that Donald Trump did fulfill his promise for an unconditional pardon to free Ross Ulbricht. This is huge. This dude was facing quite literally multiple lifetimes in prison because he was made an example of. And I read a quote somewhere basically saying that Ross will never get free. He will never receive freedom until we have our very first Bitcoin president. And the reason being, why would Ross ever get freed by a president unless they supported Bitcoin? And that's like objectively kind of a interesting and very true statement as well, is that, you know, if there's any president that would be in office and they didn't care about Bitcoin, or in fact, let's say they disliked it, why would they free Ross? The answer is they wouldn't, right? He would never have been freed. But because this administration is pro-crypto, pro-Bitcoin, well, he's free. And the bigger thing behind this is that this now gives a lot more confidence to the idea that a lot of other campaign promises that were made prior to Donald Trump taking office are also likely to be coming true. Specifically with this Bitcoin strategic reserve, it's likely that, I mean, right now I think we have about 12 different states in the US with active legislation that is going through the system to try and get these states to be able to have Bitcoin strategic reserves. Whereas another point that I heard is that, you know, if Donald Trump issued an executive order for a Bitcoin strategic reserve, it could just get reversed in 4 years. And so maybe they're just trying to get this legislation through, you know, the normal way. And really, there's also not a big rush because honestly, if I were the US government right now and I had plans to issue a Bitcoin strategic reserve, one of the first things I would be doing is accumulating it prior, right? You're not going to issue Bitcoin strategic reserve legislation, tell the entire planet, hey, we're going to be buying 200,000 Bitcoin a year for the next 5 years. You're not going to tell the entire planet that and then start buying unless you're a massive butthead. But if you have even a sense of, you know, the tiniest specks of strategy within your scope, then you would be, you know, you would not be doing that. Another massive thing I want to look at today is $11.5 trillion asset manager Larry Fink of Blackrock says that Bitcoin could go up to about $700,000 if there's more fear of currency debasement and economic stability. This is quite literally the largest asset manager on the planet at Davos, shilling Bitcoin, being bullish on Bitcoin. There is not a universe that exists. There is not a timeline in the multiverse that exists that is a more bullish timeline than the one we're currently in. Pro-crypto administration, biggest asset manager on the planet, initiating these Bitcoin spot ETFs that are the most successful ETFs in history, now just shilling to the world, again, continuing to shill the world that Bitcoin is crazy, right? That Bitcoin's likely going to go much higher. British Huddle makes a good point here. What does Larry know? Bitcoin is being normalized in front of our eyes. We just went from a recommended allocation of 2% to 5%, and he did it at Davos. When 10%? When 20%? If you're frightened of the debasement of your currency or the economic or political stability of your country, you can have an internationally based instrument called Bitcoin that will overcome those local fears. I would rather jump into a pool of worms, ooey gooey sticky worms, than sell my Bitcoin. I mean, worms aren't that bad, I guess, so that's not a crazy thing. But yeah, the last thing I want to do right now is sell my Bitcoin. Are you crazy? Are you literally crazy? Like, I don't understand. How could you not see what's coming? We see that the Circle CEO says that Trump will issue multiple executive orders on crypto soon. Again, this is speculation. I don't know. Whether it is by an executive order or not, I think a Bitcoin strategic reserve is going to be happening. And I think that the price of Bitcoin is going to be going up much higher. I think that where we are right now, right around 100,000 US dollars, is going to be looked back at in just about a month or two as one of those things where people are going to be kicking themselves, saying, "Man, I wish I would have bought in." And I don't think it can be any more clear than that. We see that BlackRock just made their biggest Bitcoin purchase of the year, about $600 million worth of Bitcoin. That's pretty ginormous, in fact. And American Hodl actually has an interesting perspective. He's saying, he doesn't know who needs to hear this, but you're not too late on Bitcoin. You're still early. In fact, you're not even late to this bull run, is what he's saying. And I actually want to talk about this and share my opinion. He's saying you're still early to this bull run. A lot of you probably don't believe that, and that's because we're currently in disbelief. So this chart right here, I've seen it posted for 8 years now, but a lot of people have been highlighting, maybe we're right around here, the thrill and euphoria stage. What he just suggested is maybe we're right here at disbelief. Now, normally I would tell you that's completely baloney. If we were at where we are right now in this cycle in previous years, I would tell you no way, no shot. I don't think I would say yes, we're closer actually to the thrill, maybe belief, and not euphoria just yet, but maybe somewhere in between thrill, belief, or maybe even a little bit past thrill. But because of fundamentally what is happening and the amount of capital that has access to buy Bitcoin and is kind of right on the cusp of potentially putting Bitcoin in a strategic reserve for the first time. I mean, this wasn't even a thought a year ago. This wasn't even like a consideration a year ago. Now it is more real than ever. And there is a fundamental reason for this, guys. Some of you are not going to like to hear this, but it's objective fact. And I need you to be reasonable and rational for just 30 seconds, and then you can go back to your normal thought process. But would Ross have been freed if Kamala was the president of the US? 0% chance. Would crypto be treated well instead of being cracked down on if Kamala won the presidency? 0% chance. Actually, you know what? I'll be a little courteous. I'll be a little generous. Let's say maybe a 1% chance. 99% chance this industry would get cracked down on in a very negative, anti-freedom way. And so just on that simple fact alone, regardless of your political beliefs, these are objective facts. The Kamala Harris administration, were they going on any campaigns and saying, hey, we want to create a Bitcoin strategic reserve or increase freedoms with crypto? No. Gary Gensler would honestly still be the SEC head. He would still be filing lawsuits, probably still losing them because they're frivolous. But the point is, this is only happening because of the change in crypto policy, because of the change in administration. There is a fundamental difference. And this reality would look, if you're invested in crypto, your targets for what Bitcoin and crypto in general would be over the next year would be substantially lower if the Trump administration would have lost. I doubt Bitcoin would have even gotten close to 100K at this point. We all remember this, right? I don't even know why. This is the most obvious brain dead thing ever, but I guarantee you there's some people watching this video that don't understand what I'm saying and they think it's not true because they live in fantasy land. This is where the price of Bitcoin was prior to the election, right here. Right around 70K, right almost at those previous all-time highs of like 2021, right? Because Trump won, the price shot directly up. If Trump would have lost, the exact opposite would have happened, in my opinion. It would have done something like this. And we would be struggling probably around $30,000 to $40,000 per Bitcoin, still maybe. That's exactly where I think we'd be. And so it's important to understand, because of where we're at and because of what happened, this chart, it's now possible. I don't think it's the base case. This is not my base case. I don't fully agree with this post. I guess honestly, if I would tell you exactly where I believe we are, I think honestly maybe right about here in belief. But there is a chance that we could be right down here simply because if a Bitcoin strategic reserve gets announced and other countries start doing similar things, we're literally talking about, exactly as Larry Fink just says here, a $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 Bitcoin potentially this year. That's a 5, 6, maybe 7x from Bitcoin's current price this year. That would break diminishing returns. it would fundamentally change the trajectory of crypto cycles or destroy cycles in terms of making them more bullish. We've seen it before happen with the S&P 500. We've seen it happen with Microsoft. We've seen it happen with Apple and Nvidia. There is a period where there's diminishing returns, and then there is a inflection point, and it happens to be similar to the S-curve, the technology S-curve, where, it's doing something for a while and then everything breaks and it starts true adoption, kind of like what happened with the internet as well. There was an inflection point where once computers and internet and everything was available and cheap enough, everybody started getting computers. Same thing with phones. Everybody started getting smartphones. There was 1 year where basically only adults or businessmen or something had cell phones. And then by the next year, babies had smartphones. It was an insane inflection point to where people did have them, but it was very rare for people to have cell phones. And then all of a sudden, everybody had cell phones. That's an inflection point, and it happens with technology. And this is more possible this year because of our current administration in the US, because of the current adoption, because of the ETFs, because of the potential strategic reserves, not only in the US, but if there is one in the US, it will very likely ignite other countries to start doing the same thing. And so that's what we're on the verge of witnessing. And I truly believe that a lot of people are not prepared for it. And I think people are not bullish enough. Now, at the same time, each cycle, even if there was not a difference this time, which I firmly believe there is going to be a difference, but even if there wasn't, we would still be in store most likely for massive gains over the next 6 or so months. And that's like the bearish case, really. Actually, to be honest, even the bearish case now for crypto is infinitely better than the bullish case if the Kamala Harris administration would have won. If they would have won, the best case scenario for that administration is way worse than the worst case scenario for us now. And there's literally people that are going to be watching this, and they're going to be doing mental gymnastics and trying to figure out a rational it's not going to be an objective response. It's going to be like a lot of mental gymnastics, and they're going to have to but that's the truth. Whether or not you want to hear it, this space would be so much worse off. And with that being said, the price of Bitcoin in this range is I think in the next few months going to be looked back at as an extremely lucrative and opportune time to be in this market. With even on the daily chart, we pointed out yesterday, there is a bullish cross occurring on the daily chart. The weekly chart looks absolutely insane. It looks ready to blow. If we actually zoom out and we look at the weekly indicators here, everything looks ready to go. The stock market actually is very close to setting new all-time highs for the S&P, NASDAQ, Dow Jones. It looks very close to setting new all-time highs. The dollar is potentially going to initiate a multi-month downtrend, which would further boost Bitcoin and risk on assets. And overall, this space is more bullish than we could have ever dreamed. And get signed up with Femex or BITUNIX below if you want to buy Bitcoin altcoins or trade. With that from the good.